So there's a lot of book bans that are going on right now in the schools, and it's certain schools. It's not all the schools, but parents and patrons initiate more than half of all the book challenges in the U.S. compared to 1% from students. The American Library Association has reported this, and so book bans in schools are catching fire. Black authors say uproar isn't about the students. And so here's an author right here. His name is Jerry Craft. And so Jerry Craft explains something that has recently happened and is happening. So this is of this year, January the 6th. And so this is by a Tat Bellamy Walker. And so nearly 6 months ago, celebrated Black children's author and illustrator Jerry Craft, who we see in this picture right here, he basically received a message saying some of his books were being pulled from the school library in Texas. And so this is one of the primary places where these actions are taking place. So I was caught off guard, Kraft says. The Newbery Medal winning author of a 2019 graphic novel called The New Kid, told by NBC BLK. Okay. It goes on to say that I felt bad for the kids because I know how much they love The New Kid and the book called The Class Act. And so I know what my school visits do. And so I felt bad if there was going to be some kids that would not be able to take advantage of that. And so the person who sent me the message to Kraft is from Katy in Texas. It's a town near Houston that has been under fire for attempts to limit the public's access to books that teach about racism. And so we know where this is leading. So in October, Katy Independent School District made headlines for temporarily yanking 2 of Kraft's books from the shelf. And so they tell stories of Black boys who experience racism in school, from school libraries and postponing his virtual visits as well. So now a deleted petition with more than 400 signatures showed parents calling for Kraft's visit to be canceled. And so at the time, Kraft tweeted that he was shocked by these accusations. And so apparently I'm teaching CRT, Kraft wrote, in a response to the parent confused about the ban, citing the decades-old academic and legal framework that teachers used teaching about racism in America. Okay, so here's the books. New Kid by Jerry Craft and Class Act also by Jerry Craft. And he's the author of these books. And so while the Texas School District reinstated the book and rescheduled his visit, Craft is among dozens of Black authors whose works are being pulled from the school library shelves under the pretext that they're teaching CRT, which is known as critical race theory. So most of the books that are targeted for bans don't teach critical race theory at all, but they're written by and about people of color. So the American Library Association said its Office for Intellectual Freedom reported 273 books were affected by the censorship attempts in 2020. So many with content that highlighted race, gender, and or sexuality. And so since September alone, there have been at least 230 challenges, the organization said in an email. And so these people have been busy trying to yank books off the shelf that have anything to do with authors that write about people of color and their experiences. And so apparently, to a group, they formed an alliance to try to get rid of these books. And they coined it as teaching CRT. So Tiffany D. Jackson, the author of a 2018 novel, Monday's Not Coming, about missing girls of color, okay? They're girls of color that are missing, is in the throes of a similar controversy as well. So at a school board meeting in Loudoun County, Virginia, and I may not have pronounced that correctly, so excuse me for the pronunciation of some words. So parents demanded that Jackson's work be banned for the sexual content in it. And so Loudoun Times-Mirror reported this. So in an email, Jackson, who is black, said that the book discusses friendships, dyslexia, community, healing, and mentions sex. So though it is not acted upon, okay? So Fight for Schools, a local advocacy group calling for the removal of critical race theory from school curriculums, posted on Twitter several clips of outraged parents at a school board meeting reading short passages. Basically, I'm just going to add this in here. They were probably cherry picking the things that they wanted to coin as CRT or sexuality or gender issues, and basically anything having to do with rights of people of color and people who may be different than someone else. And so they have a problem with it. So it says Monday's Not Coming. They wanted to read these passages. They said they were short passages and it contained sexual situations. So Jackson said that the attacks on her work are distressing. So it's hurtful to go through this, to be considered such a monster, allegedly corrupting children, as they say. So Jackson wrote in an email, so I had to go back and reread my own book to determine if we're reading the same story or not. So Monday is not about sex. And so reading is fundamental, but the context is everything. So thus, it's sad to see that these schools and parents caught in a game of telephone. And so parents at the school's officials sound off on banning books about race, gender, and sexuality. And so this is basically, I'm going to add in here, these are a group of parents who have issues with anything having to do with the history of what has happened in America regarding race relations. So they're targeting black authors and books that are about people of color, people that are of a different background or a gender difference or whatever. And so these people are angry. And so they've been like this since 2020. So that's the reason why this is happening. And so when that whole concept of critical race theory came about, it's actually taught in the college level, not in the schools. And so there are some books that teach about some things that are in regard to history, but they don't delve as deep as when you get to higher learning, when you get to maybe community college or, you get to the university. So critical race theory is not taught in these lower level classrooms or these, elementary schools. But in regard to what's going on, you've got these people that are persistent about banning these books, and a lot of it has to do with racism in and of itself. And so you got a group of people that don't like change. They don't like to see anything moving forward, to have people to learn about the history and not make mistakes from the past. And what these people are actually doing is doing all of that and then some. they're starting a new chapter that isn't good, and it's creating another history that is just as bad as the old history, and so we're starting all over again basically. And so this is what this is looking like to me. So Deborah Caldwell Stone, the director of ALA, Office for Intellectual Freedom, said that many of these book challenges are driven by social media and to target stories about people of color. Exactly, my thoughts exactly. So we're disheartened that there is an organized campaign to remove the voices of marginalized communities from the shelves of schools' libraries, Caldwell Stone said. And so we're particularly disheartened that elected officials also, who do have a duty to uphold the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, are pressing forward with efforts to remove these books as well. So a lot of this has to do with the politics of 2020 and what happened with that insurrection, and also what happened with the election as well. I think it all points to a lot of that, and then racism. It's all race based. And so it says these challenges are also violations of First Amendment rights as well, she added. So using censorship as tools is a denial of that liberty. Okay, so particularly the liberty of young people who are targeted by these book bans, Caldwell Stone said. So I'm pretty sure that they have children that are from these backgrounds that if they remove these books, you're basically saying they can't know about what's going on in their lives, and their lives don't even matter, and whatever happens to them is just a coincidence. So, critical race theory. At least 9 states in mostly Republican areas have passed bills barring educators from teaching about racism in the classroom. And many parents and school boards in these states are doubling down on removing books that tell stories about LGBTQ people and communities of color from local and school libraries. So it's basically like a hit squad on any marginalized people, people of color, and all the whole gamut. So Nora Pelizzari, the director of communications at the National Coalition Against Censorship, an organization advocating against censorship on all media platforms, said the challenges are damaging to all stakeholders as well. So Pelizzari said that educators are forced to either comply or face consequences for protesting, while students are deprived of narratives that reflect their real lives. Exactly. That's what I was saying. So when the vast majority of stories being censored and being called things like dangerous, tell the stories of historical marginalized communities that directly reflects on students. Pelizzari said that their own stories and their own lives aren't fit for consumption either. So that's what you're telling those people, those kids, those children that are black, those children that are Hispanic or Latino, the children that are from backgrounds that may have, different parents that are, maybe they're blended families or they may be gay or lesbian families. These are people that you're speaking to and you're telling them that they don't matter. And so they're still, at the end of the day, these are people too. And their lives matter just as much as yours do. And so in the fall, Texas State Representative Matt Cross, a Republican, released a list of about 850 books that he claimed made students feel make students feel discomfort due to their context of race and sexuality. So Cross urged school libraries in Texas to report whether they had any of these books, and so including titles like Mickey Kendall's 2020 nonfiction work, Hood Feminism, Kaylin Bayron's 2020 adult novel Cinderella is Dead, Jason Reynolds, Brendan Keeley's 2015 young adult novel All American Boys. A school district in San Antonio had removed more than 400 books that were on Cross's list last month. And so in a statement, the school district said that it is reviewing the content to ensure that the books are accessible based on age appropriateness as well. And so Jonathan Friedman, the director of Free Expression and Education at PEN America, said that he expects to see even more calls to ban books about diversity or featuring characters of diverse backgrounds in 2022 as well. And so every time you give in or feed into these demands to remove books just because someone objects to them, it turns into a snowball effect, Friedman said. So what is so alarming by this, that is, you would see books that maybe contain black protagonists or written by an LGBTQ author or particularly subject to is subject to extra scrutiny. So Kendall, whose book Hood Feminism highlights the issues facing women of color, and this is Mickey Kendall right here, okay? So Kendall, her book, it says that the bans did not stop students from sharing her book with other kids and other people. So there's nothing more attractive to a kid than forbidden books. So when you forbid these books, the kids get more curious and they want to read them anyway. So Kendall said, so I'm watching kids responding and saying, well, I read the book to see what they're so upset about. And so Kendall called the bans a ridiculous publicity stunt as well. So it's spreading, and all it's going to do is undermine education for the kids who are not lucky enough, or not risk-seeking enough, not prepared enough to seek out information on their own, she said. So Bayron, whose book Cinderella is Dead is about a black queer girl, said that the bans speak to a much larger matter. Kaylin Byron. And so this is here, right? Kaylin Byron. Sorry about that. So I don't see these challenges to my work as a badge of honor. These, she said, but these things speak to the level of bigotry that still exists specifically within the public school education or public education system. So this is another book author right here. This is Jason Reynolds. More than half of the book challenges in the U.S. initiated by parents and patrons compared to just 1% of the students, ALA reported. Amid the national outcry, Reynolds, a co-author of All American Boys, which is among ALA's most commonly banned book, said that he's not backing down. So I've never met a young person that has been afraid to read my work, Reynolds said. So adding that opponents are doing everything that they can to shield young people from the things that scare them, not things that scare they're doing everything that to shield books from everything that it scares them, but not that scares the children. The children aren't scared of it. It's the people that are doing all these banning of books and whatnot. It's like they don't want the kids to learn about the true history of America and what has actually happened and what's happening actually right now to this day, what they're doing right now. They're creating a new history that isn't good. And so, so it's just sad to see that this country is going backwards, and that I believe that is not what the aim was. It was for with the intention of us learning about the past and the wrongs of the past and not repeating those wrongs in the past and creating a new chapter where everybody is welcome and everybody is appreciated no matter what their differences are.